I live on a lake in Maine, and last night the lake froze over. Looks like my duck watching season is over. Identifying ducks isn't a problem. It's a lot of problems. Problem number one, more than almost any other bird, male and female ducks look very different from each other. Number two, male ducks go into eclipsed plumage later in summer. They don't even look like themselves for a good part of the year. Number three, ducks taste good, and they know it. So for the most part, they try to stay away from you and me as much as they can. Problem number four, some species look a lot like other species. I hate scops. I hate them. And then they give you all kinds of other challenges, like field marks that they hide, iridescent colors that don't iridesce, if that's a word, crests that don't raise, dabbling or diving, fresh or salt water, geographic distribution, and their natural tendency to wander out of bounds sometimes. And why are most sea ducks black and white? Let's leave ocean ducks to the next video. If there is another video, we'll see how many people make it to the end of this one. First step in identifying ducks is knowing what ducks to identify. Some are everywhere, some are somewhere, and a few aren't anywhere, except by accident. Here's a bunch of ducks that are everywhere, and when they're close, they're really not all that difficult. To identify a duck, first do this. Everything is a mallard, unless it isn't. You've seen countless mallards. You know what they look like. Look for everything that isn't that. Males in breeding plumage are easy, but in eclipsed plumage, they can look an awful lot like the female mallards. But only mallards have a blue speculum surrounded by white in the primaries of the wing. It's very obvious in a flying bird, and sometimes it flashes that same thing to you while it's sitting there. And while other birds may look like female mallards, they usually have dark bills or yellowish bills. Female mallard has a distinctive orange bill with a bunch of black right in the middle of it. Mottled ducks look a lot like a female mallard, except there's no white in the speculum. The male's bill is yellowish, the female's bill is orangish, but with no dark in the middle. And the biggest clue you may have a mottled duck? The map. They're only found in southern Florida and little pieces of the Gulf Coast along the southern U.S. Same thing with Mexican ducks. They look a lot like a female mallard, but they're only found in the southwest of the United States, close to the Mexican border. That's it, I'm going to ignore them. The biggest comparison is mallard and American black duck. Because they share much of the same range, they look a lot alike, and they even interbreed. But it's actually pretty easy because the black duck is just a lot darker than a female mallard. They don't have the white surrounding the blue in the speculum, and you can really see that if they're sitting or if they're flying away, it's even easier. This is the real problem about using YouTube to help you identify ducks. Most of the videos are about duck hunters. It's what they see when they look down the barrel of a shotgun. Those of us using binoculars, it's a little bit different. And this is the other thing. Guidebooks are really useful. They show you every field mark you can look for, but only if you're close enough to look. Often, they're not the best clues at a distance. And much of the time, at a distance, you couldn't even see the clue if it was there. Take these two again, greater and lesser scaup. This is the greater scaup the book tells you to look for, green iridescent head. But I swear I never get them in the right light. They're always dark. The head of a lesser scaup shines purple, but only if you're close and in the right light. And how often are you close? I mean, seriously, what are these? So let's think about how to identify ducks in the real world, the world where ducks are far away and a lot of field marks are just useless. In this world, the first clue is behavior. Dabbling ducks and diving ducks. Dabbling ducks can go underwater, they just don't want to. When you're a long way from a duck, dabbling or diving is your first clue. And we're going to start with the dabbling ducks, the puddle ducks. The second clue is size. Remember from the beginning I said everything is a mallard unless it isn't? Well, mallards are usually about the biggest ducks out here, so that would include mallards and things that look like mallards, the Mexican ducks, the mottled ducks, the American black ducks, they're all about the same size. Just about every other duck out here is going to be a little bit smaller than that, and sometimes much smaller. So let's go first for the smaller ducks that look a lot like mallards, northern shovelers. Even at a distance, the humongous bill is apparent. Even if the bird is just a silhouette, you can identify it. And even if you can't see the bill, no other male duck has that much chestnut along the flank. You can see it from a big distance. Northern pintails are nearly the opposite. Their long necks and tails make them look big but a little skinny. Seriously, sometimes you can tell these ducks by a silhouette just because of their shape. You see where I'm going with this, right? Guidebooks rely heavily on field marks, but sometimes impression is much more important than what the field marks are. Male northern pintails aren't that hard, but females don't give you much to work with. Generally, impression is your best bet. They are shaped more or less like the males, but they're just uniformly brown. Impression matters even more when you've got a big flock of ducks. Field marks aren't going to be that important. It's the impressions in the flock that are going to help you pick them out. And differing size and shape, in this case, makes the northern pintail stand out from the northern shovelers. I take gadwalls and American widgeons together because they're pretty similar. You've really got to look for those subtle differences in these guys. Male American widgeons have a white patch in their forehead, which gets duller in eclipsed plumage, but it's still kind of there. They have a black butt, separated from the rest of the body by a white patch. Widgeons have a rounder head than gadwalls, and importantly, if you're close enough, they've got a silver-gray bill in both genders with a black tip at the end. Also, kind of a dark smudge around the eye. Gadwalls don't have that. The bill and the eye are only useful if you're close enough to see them, but at a distance, the size of the duck, the roundish head, the smaller bill, the black butt, these are clues that will help you out when you're not all that close. Gadwalls have a blockier head. The bill in the male is dark, the bill in the female is orange. The males also have a black butt, but it's a lot bigger, blacker than the American widgeon, and there's no white setting it off in the body, but there is often a white patch in the wing that really sets it off. Females are a lot like female mallards, although smaller. The bill is mostly dark with maybe some orange splotches. Female mallards have blue patches in the speculum bordered by white. Female gadwalls don't. Oh, and I don't know if this is really true, but I find widgeons in salt water much more than I find gadwalls there. And may not be true, but geez, I'll grab any clue I can get. Look, I don't pretend to be a waterfowl identification expert, but if you follow this channel, you know I've been out looking at a lot of ducks over the last 2 months. And I'm going to do this video while I can still remember stuff. I've especially practiced a lot of teal lately, mostly green-winged teal, not cinnamon teal. All of them are pretty much west of the Mississippi. I've never seen even one east of the Mississippi, and so I'm going to strategically ignore that one. Oh, and I took this picture near Billings, Montana. And besides, the female cinnamon teal looks just like the female blue-winged teal, so you're on your own. The first clue that you have a teal in your binoculars is size. Blue-winged teal are much smaller than mallards, and green-winged teal are even smaller than that. Green-winged teal is tiny compared to mallards. Green-winged teal is not much bigger than dunlin, a shorebird. But then it gets tricky. This is the bird you want to see, a male in breeding plumage. But in late summer, this is the bird you get, a female or an immature male, or whatever the heck this is. The green in the wing is easy to see when it's flying, but when it's sitting there, that green often plays peekaboo with you, and often you're not going to see it. But one thing they all have is this cream-colored stripe at the base of the tail. It's bigger on a male, but it's there on a female, and blue-winged teal don't have it. This is the blue-winged teal you want to see, even from the far side of the pond. But in late summer, this is the blue-winged teal you get, in eclipsed plumage. You can still see a little bit of that white crescent in the face on a male. But females and young don't even have that crescent. What they do have is a light color right at the base of the bill. Green-winged teal don't have that. There is one dabbler that doesn't hang out with all the other puddle ducks so much. Wood ducks don't really like to hang out in the middle of the pond or go probing in mud. They like to stay maybe in small flocks right close to the reeds where they can duck for cover as they need to. Fortunately, if they're anywhere within binocular distance, both the male and female are easy to identify. I mean, what else looks like this? Even when flying a long way away, that blocky head, that short tail is really distinctive. The only other duck in the world in this genus is a mandarin duck from far eastern Asia. Both of them like to perch in trees, and wood ducks like to eat acorns, which is why there's a whole bunch of them out in my driveway. Diving ducks are harder and easier. They're easier because you can easily divide them up into 3 subgroups: mergansers, black and white or brown and white ducks that are diving, and anything that's not them. We've got 3 mergansers in North America: common merganser, red-breasted merganser, and hooded merganser. Common mergansers are common, and they're mostly on fresh water. There are some exceptions, but mostly fresh. Common mergansers are just about the size of a mallard. They're bright white underneath. The male has a green head, the female has a reddish head. Male red-breasted mergansers have, wait for it, red breasts. They're a little bit smaller too. They also have green heads and red heads respectively. They nest on fresh water, but in the off-season, they're almost always on salt. Male hooded mergansers are really easy, even at a distance. That crest is impressive. And females have a crest too. And on both genders, especially the female, that crest may be down. The females are a little bit harder. They're a darker cinnamon color than the other two merganser species. And all the hooded mergansers tend to be in fairly shallow, more likely reedy water. In freshwater, I'll put 5 diving ducks in the black and white category, and some of the females can be brown and white. Ringneck ducks were named by hunters because that ring at the chest, that was really obvious when you're shooting it. Sitting on the water, it's tempting to call them ring-billed. All you really need is a pitch black back and breast. Black. Because scops have gray in the back. They look a lot like the ringneck ducks at a distance, but that black back should be the first thing you notice in a ringneck, and the gray on scops. One thing that never works for me, this. These are female scops, but which ones? The only field mark you can see is the white patch behind the bill. The secret and the answer coming up in a moment. What the books will tell you is that the head of a greater scop is rounder and the head of a lesser scop peaks at the back. But when I see them, they're often diving, their heads are wet, the little pointed crest is slicked down. I screw them up all the time. But the other thing they'll tell you is that white stripe along the primaries in a bird that's flying away from you, it is much longer on their greater scop. It's not too hard to separate the other 2 black and white ducks from the first 3. Barrow's goldeneye and common goldeneye have white breasts. You can see it from a half-mile away. It's a little harder to separate the 2 from each other. Both of them have white cheek spots. On the common goldeneye, it's round. It's a crescent on the Barrow's goldeneye. The other thing you'll probably notice is the common goldeneye has a rounded head. The Barrow's goldeneye has a very steep forehead onto a slightly smaller bill, so it really gives it a distinctive shape. Both goldeneyes have a dark back and a white flank. But on the Barrow's goldeneye, the dark of the wing extends further down the body, so from a distance, the common goldeneye looks just wider on the flank. All the books tell you the female goldeneye's bill is yellow. That is the female Barrow's goldeneye. But frankly, I don't really trust that field mark very much because I see a lot of intergrades and I can't tell. Besides, I don't get to practice that much. Common goldeneyes are all over the place. They nest, right up the road from me. Barrow's goldeneye, there's a small colony up in eastern Canada. Mostly it's a western bird. Redheads and canvasbacks don't get into Maine all that much, and I don't get to practice on them much, but I don't have to. Redheads have shorter bills, rounder heads, and gray backs. Canvasbacks have a sloped head down to a longer bill and a white back. The difference is obvious if you could just remember those 2 things. Ruddy ducks are a little trickier. They're one of 6 stiff-tailed duck species in the world, but the only one in North America. They're smaller than most of the other diving ducks, and when that stiff tail is up, they're almost unmistakable. But much of the time it's not up, but there are 2 other features you can look for that'll help you out. They really have a ski jump nose, with a short, thick neck and a forehead sloping down to a long bill that tips up the end. And males often have a white cheek patch, even in eclipsed plumage. They have blue bills, but unless you're up close, you're not going to see it. And that's just it. Books give you a nice close-up picture of every bird with all the field marks. But in the real world, how often are you going to see that? At a distance, the best bet is to just remember a few big clues that'll help sort them out. All right, I'm going to duck out.